The movie begins with a brief overview of a group of British Special Forces troops on assignment in Afghanistan. At the time, the situation there was chaotic, and the mission had yet to be explained in detail. However, after the incident, a colonel named Joseph Smith, better known as Joy, was so deeply traumatized that he had to be hospitalized. However, during the recovery process, Joy ran away and spent the rest of his life as a homeless man. One night, some thugs again committed violence against the homeless. Joy, who was in a semi-drunk state, could not bear to see her friend being abused, and tried to fight back. However, she became the target of their rage and was beaten to a pulp. Despite the pain from her wounds, Joy tried to escape and entered an apartment building. The thugs kept chasing her, and under duress, Joy broke through a window. Luckily, the apartment was empty, so she was able to hide out for a while. To forget her traumatizing past, Joy drowned in alcohol until her life fell apart, ending up homeless. The next morning, looking at herself in the mirror, she began to realize how much she had changed. While there was still a chance, Joy decided to improve her life. She intended to move out of the apartment and start anew. Suddenly, the landline rang. The landlord had left an automated message, informing us that he was out of town and would be back in London in October. Dozens of letters were piled under the door, and interestingly, one of the letters was from a bank, containing a debit card linked to the landlord's main account. After withdrawing some money from the found account, Joy spent another night getting drunk. Although her appearance has changed, it seems that she is still trapped in an addiction that is hard to break. On the other hand, the movie introduces a nun named Christina, who devotes almost every night to distributing food to the poor. Soon, somehow, Joy and Christina's paths cross. Christina, as a nun, devoted her life to serving God, even reporting any money she got from donations so that it could be given to those who were more in need. However, at the last moment, Christina suddenly remembered something she had wanted for a long time. Perhaps it wouldn't hurt if she used a small portion of the money to fulfill her wish. As it turns out, Christina is very fond of ballet, and who would have thought that to enjoy a professional ballet performance, one would have to spend quite a lot of money. Meanwhile, Joy is again haunted by her bad memories of serving in Afghanistan. Although a lot of time has passed, the memories continue to linger. Unfortunately, we have not been given an explanation of the events that took place there. On the other hand, the wounds from the beating she experienced yesterday are getting worse. However, due to her fugitive status, Joy was afraid to go to the hospital. Therefore, that night she asked for help from Nurse Christina. Do you still remember Isabel, Joy's friend who was saved at the beginning of the movie? Unfortunately, the next day the thugs harassed her again. This time, they even kidnapped Isabel and forced her to become a prostitute. Joy was so worried about Isabel's fate that she even posted an announcement about her. However, soon after, Isabel called and strangely claimed to be returning home, even though Joy knew it was impossible. Since Isabel's departure, Joy began to stop his habit of getting drunk. She began to accept reality and tried to improve herself, including her body that had been injured. After her wounds healed, Joy decided to earn money in a better way and no longer relied on the debit card she had found earlier. However, as time went by, her neighbors began to feel suspicious of her existence. Luckily, Joy was smart enough to deal with it wisely. One night, when the restaurant where she worked was about to close, some arrogant soccer supporters refused to leave. Therefore, Joy was asked to wait for them. However, after finally being allowed to leave on good terms, they showed disrespect and tried to gang up on her. Under duress, Joy is forced to fight back, and her fighting skills proved to be quite formidable. The next day, her boss took her to the mafia headquarters, which turned out to be a place run by Santos, a man named Mr. Coy. They were looking for a new driver and bodyguard. At first, Joy was hesitant about the offer, but because she needed the money, she accepted the job. Since then, apart from being a chauffeur, Joy was also often sent to discipline people who disturbed her boss's business. The job pays well, but Joy still sets aside a portion of her earnings for charity to the poor, which is distributed through meals delivered by Sister Christina every night. Despite the good pay, there was a nagging feeling of unease that continued to haunt Joy, as her work often involved criminal activity. As it turns out, behind his tumultuous life, Joy has a wife and a daughter. As a father, it is his responsibility to provide for his family. On the other hand, Joy never stops showing attention to them. She often sent them special gifts and even invited them to dinner together. But when they finally met, news came that changed everything. Sister Christina informed them that the police had just found a girl washed up in the river, and it was most likely Isabel. Based on the police investigation, Isabel was allegedly killed by one of her customers after being injected with drugs until she overdosed. Sister Christina also began to link Isabel's death to Joy's work, who was now involved in drug distribution for her boss. As a nun, Christina feels called to give advice to Joy, considering that she has now strayed far from the right path. The next day, the two thugs who had once mistreated Joy returned to the homeless to ask for a deposit. However, this time, Joy came with the intention of protecting them and finding out who was responsible for Isabel's death. At first, the thugs were reluctant to open their mouths. However, after Joy threatened to remove their eyes with a spoon, they finally revealed what they knew. Although they didn't know the perpetrator's name, they did provide some helpful characteristics. After getting the necessary information, Joy invited Christina to meet at an art exhibition. That night, Christina had to wear a rather flashy dress, and the atmosphere became increasingly tense. Long story short, when the two met, Christina was very nervous about her appearance. She didn't realize she had taken a few sips of alcohol, which eventually got her drunk. The next day, Joy went back to her usual routine. This time, her task was to collect a debt at a restaurant. However, the owner fought back, forcing Joy to use force. This was the first time in a long time that Joy was forced to use a weapon, and the incident did not end well. This incident started to attract the attention of the police, who were now starting to pick up on Joy's trail. To find out, they even interrogated Sister Christina. However, to their surprise, the police's attention was more focused on finding Joy than investigating Isabel's death, even though Christina had provided a description of the perpetrator last night. On the way to the convent, Sister Christina began to open up a bit about her past. When she was young, she loved ballet. However, bad luck befell her when the instructor who was supposed to guide her sexually abused her. Unable to stand the treatment, Christina ended up killing her own teacher. Of course, her actions were still wrong in the eyes of the law, but due to her young age, the Polish government decided to send her to a monastery for rehabilitation. In essence, Christina wants to convey that everyone has sins, and as long as we are alive, the opportunity to repent is always open, including for Joy who wants to atone for her past sins. Joy is determined to find Isabel's murderer. That morning, she went to Mr. Coy and begged for permission to meet the real leader of the triad. As it turned out, the leader was a woman. The prostitution business in London was closely linked to the triad's power, and they had a list of customers who were often involved in violence. Therefore, they knew who killed Isabel. However, the information was considered extremely valuable, and in return, Joy was asked to complete a secret task first. Who would have guessed that the mission in question would be related to the human trafficking business? That night, Joy headed to the harbor to transport people to be sold. Sadly, one of the victims of the trade turned out to be a child. However, Joy felt that she couldn't do anything because if her mission failed, then Isabel's murderer would never be found. The perpetrator of Isabel's murder, named Max, was Mr. Coy's man. Max managed to steal an invitation card from the perpetrator's pocket during a visit to the brothel. Before killing Max, Joy asked Sister Christina to come to a park so she could capture her face with a camera. Joy seemed to be worried that her plan for revenge later that night would not go smoothly. At the very least, these photos could serve as a memento for her daughter. After the photo shoot was over, Sister Christina suddenly said goodbye. She informed her that tomorrow she would be leaving for Africa on a humanitarian mission, and this would probably be the last time they would see each other. But before leaving, Christina wants to spend time with the man she loves. At the same time, the owner of the apartment where Joy had been staying all this time finally returned to London. Of course, she was very surprised to find her apartment already occupied by someone. Before parting ways, Christina invited Joy to meet again that night, as she had bought tickets for a ballet performance for two. Unfortunately, when the performance arrived, Joy didn't show up. As it turned out, she had two matters to attend to that night. First, he visited his ex-wife's residence to hand over a bag of money and a letter. However, he was surprised when it was his own daughter who opened the door to the apartment. What was even more surprising was that his daughter had never known who her father was. Afterwards, Joy changes her clothes and attends a lavish dinner hosted by London property tycoons. There, she discovered that the perpetrator of Isabel's murder was enjoying the event. Joy's arrival there was clearly for revenge. After finding Max's figure, without hesitation, Joy immediately threw him from a height of 520 meters to the roadside. Max seemed disappointed that Joy had repeated her bad habits in the past. However, here we are finally told what really happened in Afghanistan. All of her team members were slaughtered by the enemy, and out of emotion, Joy vented her frustration by killing 5 innocent civilians. That deep regret continues to haunt her to this day. No matter how much good she did, it was not enough to erase the sins of the past. The next day, Sister Christina left for Africa, but Joy had already left her a letter. The letter recounts how Joy tried to make amends, from reporting a human trafficking case committed by the triads, to leaving some money to the owner of the apartment she once occupied. Before being arrested by the police, Joy was also determined to eradicate street thugs. However, all that goodness was not enough to make up for all her sins in Afghanistan. With that, the movie ends. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next movie. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe.